you and I have unfinished business.
Oh? And what's so stinking about it?
The moment of heart rate feeling, 0 to start. I think this just might be my masterpiece.
You never had control. That's the illusion. Now I was overwhelmed by the power of this place. But I made a mistake too. I didn't have enough respect for that power, and it's out now. The only thing that matters now are the people we love. Alan, Lex, and Tim, John, they're out there where people are dying.
I feel like I've seen that recently, but I'm totally blanking. What is it?
Jurassic Park.
Ah! Laura Dern says... Is that Laura Dern's line? Oh, when she's,
yes,
like, spazzing out and, like, whenever they're, like... I think he's, like, asking her if he wants something to eat. And she's like, yeah, you need to, like, start freaking out.
And then she takes a spoonful of ice cream.
There you go. Well, okay. Welcome to episode 14 of the Average Joe's Movie Club Cast. This is Justin.
I'm Joey.
And in this episode, we will be chatting about the slow-paced but high-flying martial arts action film epic 1971's A Touch of Zen from director Carruth. And Leonardo DiCaprio is out for revenge in director Martin Scorsese's historical epic Gangs of New York.
And just a heads up, we do discuss all of our films in full, so if you haven't seen a movie, just skip forward a little bit to avoid spoilers.
And if you want to be a part of the club, just make sure to hit that subscribe button. And please leave a comment. We'd love to hear from you. And yeah, we love talking movies. So welcome. Joey, how you been doing?
I'm doing pretty good, man. Just a little tired this time of year. In retail is nuts, but
I bet.
Yeah.
Did you partake in any of those Black Friday sales?
I just hit up Best Buy and bought some movies. That's the only thing I really did. So just, combine that out with what I already did with the Criterion Sale at the beginning of November. Nice little box into the month. So I did a Fast and Furious box set. I did the Mission Impossible box set. And I did the Harry Potter box set. So that there was a bunch of movies there just kind of in one swoop. And then I also picked up some of the cheaper ones. They had Dark Phoenix for super cheap. Your favorite movie, Bad Times at El Royale. And then Venom Endgame, Red Sparrow, Fifth Element on Steelbook. They had Office Space, 20th anniversary, so I had to scoop that up. And then I also picked up Spectre to complete my James Bond, Daniel Craig collection.
Yeah, I just saw the trailer for the new James Bond film coming out next year. Looking forward to seeing that. Probably should do a whole kind of rewatch on all those. Seems like forever since I've seen any of those.
Yeah, I'll probably be doing that, next year. Get caught back up and nice and ready and prepared. Plus, Casino Royale has Ava Green, and I like Ava Green. Yeah. And Spectre has Christoph Waltz, and Skyfall has Javier Bardem, and both of those guys are aces. So
very solid Bond villains indeed. I also took part in the Criterion sale finally. I put it off, kind of waited till the last couple days. I picked up The Last Emperor finally. That's one of my favorites in the collection. I had held off on it because it doesn't have the TV, the longer cut of the film on the Blu-ray for some reason. Apparently because the director prefers the shorter cut. I really like the long cut. I think it has a lot of good nuance in there. It does get a little lengthy at the end, but it would have been nice to have with Criterion, you're always kind of expecting the definitive edition. So, I mean, the DVD has both cuts. So, But I went ahead and picked it up anyways. For some reason, I've been holding off on picking up any of the Wes Anderson Blu-rays. So I finally got started with those, with the Royal Tenenbaums. And a few of those I didn't like when I first saw them, like Life Aquatic and Darjeeling Limited. But I rewatched them, and I liked them a heck of a lot more. So, yeah, eventually own all those. Scanners, picked up, really enjoyed that. And Chasing Amy, that's an out-of-print DVD that had been sitting on the North Charleston Barnes & Noble shelf for years. Every time I walked in there, I'd saw it, and I finally gave him a home. So I enjoy that movie. I know a lot of people like to trash it, but it was another time, the 90s, and shoot with Kevin Smith, and he likes to put plenty of colorful dialogue into his movies. Finally picked up Eraserhead. That's not my favorite David Lynch, but there's some David Lynch shorts on there that I'm interested in seeing. And then I picked up a few Blu-rays that I'm looking forward to watching with my dad. They're going to be gifts to him, The Wages of Fear and Thief. So, yeah. A couple more Criterions on the shelf. It's growing and growing and growing. And go ahead.
Well, first of all, Chasing Amy, that was the first Criterion I ever owned before I even knew what Criterions were. So when I went and bought my first Criterion last year, which was Lady Snowblood, and I was just looking through some DVDs I had out of cases, I realized that I had Chasing Amy, and I ended up going back and getting all my old cases that were stored and, put it back in its glory. And then I also actually picked up the Royal Tenenbaums on DVD from Pawn Shop for $1. So I also picked that one up. Yeah. So...
My first Criterion was Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. I picked that up from Borders in Charlotte before I ever knew what Criterion was. I just picked up the case and had this awesome slipcover and stuff. I was like, yeah, I'm sold. I love this movie. So I saw a few football games, and they all sucked.
Well, I know to one of them which you refer, and I saw the first half of it, and it was pretty awesome.
Carolina Clemson massacre, for anyone that doesn't know.
I mean, it could have been worse.
Sure, yes.
It was still pretty bad.
Yeah, I was pulling for Virginia Tech. I'm married into a Virginia Tech family, and I watched the last drive of that game, and I think that might have been the worst last drive of any game I've ever seen. That poor Virginia Tech quarterback got sacked like 4 times in a row, and yeah, that was just pathetic. And then the Gophers, the Minnesota Golden Gophers, my family is fans of that team, and they had this magical season where they were ranked up in the top 10, and then they got beat by Iowa, and then they totally shit the bed versus Wisconsin. So their dream season's pretty much flushed. I mean, they're going to get in a decent bowl game, I'm sure, but they're not playing in the championship game versus Ohio State, so it's almost like all for naught, unfortunately.
I was pulling for them against Wisconsin. I wanted them to win, and I wanted them to go play Ohio State. But that didn't happen. Hey, on the bright side, there was one fantastic game for everybody.
Oh, Bama going down?
That lives outside of Tuscaloosa, and that was Bama losing.
Let's see, what was I watching? I was watching a movie during that, but I was kind of peering at my phone occasionally for score updates. I think that might have been when I was watching A Touch of Zen, so that's kind of funny.
I guess it's kind of tainted because, Tua wasn't in the game, and they still only won by 3, and there was 2 pick sixes. But hey, you know what? I'll take it. They're not going to be in the playoff this year, and now you just need LSU to continue murdering everybody and to beat Georgia. And there'll only be one SEC school, and like Utah can get in, or Oklahoma, and we'll be gravy. And hopefully it'll be the Tigers versus the Tigers. And the last time these two met in a bowl, we kicked their butt. I won't say kicked their butt. We won a last-second field goal. But, hey, we won, and that's what matters.
Yeah, I remember that game. Yeah, we'll see how it all shakes out. Then I watched my Vikings on Monday night, and they went down ridiculously, like in the third quarter. But then they almost came back, so... At least when they're like kind of like in it, that I don't get too down on things. But at least I have movies to fall back on whenever my football teams are sucking So let's get back to movie talk. And I had a little bit of a Black Friday movie marathon. It was my third year in a row that I'd done that. Last year was a big one. We watched Lord of the Rings back to back to back. This year we did we did like a Batman-a-thon. Got kind of a late start. So when we got 3 Batman films in, we saw Batman Returns. We saw an animated one, Batman Under the Red Hood, and then Batman Forever, which I'm going to talk more about that in just a minute. And then I decided to continue my Jim Carrey kick, and I also watched Ace Ventura, When Nature Calls, which we actually saw Cliffhanger the night before, and there's kind of a fun parody in that movie. And then Dumb and Dumber I also watched. So, yeah, been on quite the Jim Carrey kick lately. What's up?
Oh, we're gonna later on, after we talk about our challenge movie, we're gonna take the challenge movie and circle it back to Dumb and Dumber. We're just gonna come back to that. We're just gonna put a pin in it.
Okay, interesting. And then Christmas season's upon us. I put some just only phase 1 of my Christmas lights. It takes me days and days to put them all up all over my house. And this weekend we're going up to Bryson City, North Carolina to do the Polar Express ride. And I'll put a pin in the Polar Express for now. Anywho, it's about time for our Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. And tonight I have the good, the unexpected, and the ugly. What do you got, Joey?
I have the disappointing, the fun, and the great.
Oh, let's hear about your disappointing.
Disappointing was Scarlet Diva.
Okay, never heard of that.
Yeah, all right. So it's it's written, directed, and starring Asia Argento.
Okay.
Yeah. So it is a like semi-autobiographical movie about her. And her coming up in Italy and being like a big star in Italy, and then wanting to go to the States and be a star here, which most people know her from Triple X. If you know her at all, it's from Triple X. She was the female lead in Triple X. Yeah. But it's about her being young and partying, and there's a character who is definitely supposed to be Harvey Weinstein, who tries to rape her and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, but you read the back of it, and you know who her father is, and you're like, oh, okay, and it wasn't very good. You want to see a lot of skin? Sure, cool. But the movie itself, was just very disappointing overall.
That's too bad.
Yeah. So.
All right, so I have good, unexpected, and ugly.
Well, we started with disappointing. We'll start on you with the ugly.
All right, so this goes back to Batman Forever. And when I was growing up, I was like, oh, I love the Batman Forever movie. I love Jim Carrey as the Riddler. Val Kilmer is a decent Batman. And oh my gosh, I cannot believe I defended that film for so long, because it is an absolute train wreck, especially after I watched Batman Returns slightly before that, which is one of my new favorite Batman movies right after The Dark Knight. Oh gosh, where do I start with Batman Forever? So after Batman Returns was a little bit controversial for parents because it was a little edgier. They wanted to go campier and more family friendly, and it just got really, really dumb. With Batman Forever, Val Kilmer is like by far at least Clooney has some like charisma. Man, Kilmer is like totally flat in this movie. We got the Batman butt shot introduced there. That's awful. There's this stupid scene where like Two-Face like lifts this safe out of a building, and like they're inside the safe, and like the whole like area is like flooded with this ridiculously annoying like red light, and there's a security guy in there. He's like, "It's boiling acid," as if like regular acid wouldn't have been enough. It's boiling for some reason. And then whenever Batman saves the day, it like floats right back into place exactly where it started. Just really, really stupid stuff. I mean, Robin's all right. The soundtrack's all right.
Big giant seal song, right?
Yep, "Kissed by a Rose." That's
Yep.
I remember me and my sister jamming out to that one. Jim Carrey's all right. He's a little over the top, and it seems like he's like making the most out of a nothing kind of deal. But yeah, Batman Forever. I'm really. My kids are like, "Okay, so we're gonna watch Batman and Robin now." I'm like, "No, I need a breather after that one." So eventually I'll see it. Which I remember even watching Batman and Robin in the theater and being like, "This is a little stupid." So yeah, we'll see how that all plays out.
So it's been forever since I've seen Batman Forever. I do remember thinking that Jim Carrey was really good as the Riddler, and like I remember talking to somebody not that long ago about it. If someone came up to me now and they're like, "Hey, we got this new Batman movie coming out, and we cast Jim Carrey as the Riddler," I'd be like, "You know what? I'm down with that." But yeah, no, like you told me you had a Batman movie and Jim Carrey's in it. Like, okay, cool. Tommy Lee Jones is in it. Cool. Nicole Kidman's in it. Cool. Val Kilmer, yeah, 90s though? Yeah, sure. I'd be like, that movie's going to be great. And then you got Batman Forever, and it's like, yeah.
Yeah, even Nicole Kidman's flat in the movie. Like every scene with her and Bruce Wayne, it's almost like out of a soap opera. Yeah, it's pretty wretched. I don't recommend. That one definitely didn't hold up for me. What was some of your other categories? You had like a great, right? Let's go with your great.
The fun. You should save the great for last. You should go with the fun second.
All right, fun.
The fun was the 2017 Jumanji.
Okay. Better late than never.
Well, just in time for the new one.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, so I did not know that I needed in my life Jack Black telling Karen Gillan how to be hot. That was not a thing that I knew I needed, and then I saw it.
She's pretty smoking in that movie.
And it was great. The Rock and Kevin Hart, big brother, little brother kind of...
Smoldering intensity.
Right? It was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. And during watching that movie, it kind of dawned on me. It's like, I think I saw parts of the OG Jumanji. I don't think I've ever actually seen that movie because my big childhood movies with
Robin Williams.
With Robin Williams, of course, Aladdin, but live action movies is Mrs. Doubtfire and then Hook. Like I saw Hook so many times as a kid.
Okay.
Oh yeah, no, just that's my Hook. That's what I think of him. He's Peter Pan, always and indefinitely. He's Peter Pan, forever and ever and ever, ever and ever and ever. But so no, I enjoyed that movie, and somehow I was apparently the only person who ever seen the Jumanji remake. It almost made $1 billion freaking dollars at the box office.
It was a very hot Christmas movie last year. Yeah, we enjoyed it quite a bit. My kids loved it.
Yeah, so I suggest you go and watch it. It's got a lot of great action. It also has a Jonas Brother in it.
Yeah, it's kind of like the Breakfast Club meets an action movie, and yeah, how they're all playing like different characters, like with being as avatars. Yeah, I thought all that was really clever. A lot of dick jokes for a kids movie, though.
Yeah, I think they kind of. I think it's supposed to kind of be like I think it's supposed to be more like they're hitting everybody who was a kid in '95, so you're grown now, and maybe your kids are slightly older kind of thing mixed in there, I guess. So, but they always kind of do that. So. Oh
yeah, every PG-13 movie, it never fails. There's always an F-bomb. I'm just like, did you really have to do that to make your movie a little grittier?
They do. They have to get the one F-bomb in there for effect because it's PG-13. You know how they stretch that. Plus, also PG-13, not 8, 9, or 10. That's what PG movies are for.
Yeah. Those are a dime a dozen. Not a lot of PG movies these days.
That's true, but...
All right. So I have the good and the unexpected left.
All right. We'll do the unexpected.
Okay. So Thanksgiving night, so my wife, she stayed with her parents because her and her mother went out Black Friday shopping early on Friday. So I wanted to watch a Christmas show with the kids. So I saw Claus on Netflix, and I was like, okay, this will be a cute little animated Christmas movie. And man, this thing was awesome. Like, it was like The Emperor's New Groove meets like the origin of Santa Claus story. Man, the animation was like absolutely beautiful. It was like kind of an updated version of like what Disney was doing with Atlantis, The Last Empire, and Treasure Planet. So kind of a mix between like it kind of looks hand drawn, but at the same time you tell there's some CGI in there. Kind of a cocky guy is the main character, so that kind of put me off at first, but man, the animation drew me in. A lot of crazy characters, but man, it's a real sweet story and perfect for the holidays. So yeah, definitely Claus is worth your time if you want something fun Christmassy to watch, and it's on Netflix.
Nice.
All right, you're great, right?
Yes, I have a great, and it is the good, the bad, and the ugly. Yes, the namesake of this segment.
Yeah, man.
So the last
that was your favorite of the three?
I mean, I really liked the first one as well, but it was too good not to pass up dropping the namesake.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
I liked all three of them. But like, all right, so you got these three guys, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yep.
They're basically
Tuco,
all just,
right?
Yeah. When you have Lee Van Cleef, you have Clint Eastwood, the other guy. Basically, who is harder? All of the movie. Who's harder? Who's more of a badass? I mean, even the good is Clint Eastwood. I don't even really think he's good. I mean, he's good, but he ain't a good guy. So yeah, no, they're all really good. Like,
I'm not sure if I've ever seen this movie front to back. There's always a part in the middle, like where they're trudging through the desert, where I kind of like nod off for a few minutes. But the beginning of that movie and the end of that movie is great. The middle kind of drags out a little bit. Yeah, they're all a little lengthy.
But I mean, so we watched all three of those, and we've watched Yojimbo. We haven't watched Sanjuro yet. But Yojimbo was also just that was also a powerhouse. We're gonna talk about another dude who just didn't. I'm a bad dude. Didn't care. That one took me as being a little goofier than what I kind of wanted more action, and I kind of got more goofiness in that than I expected. So I was a little surprised to see such a high rating from you. But you typically like the Japanese movies more than I do, anyways. So yeah, that's probably a fair statement. But no, that was really, really good.
Actually, yeah, a few dollars more is my favorite of the trilogy. Like, I enjoyed it the first time, and then I rewatched it, and the filmmaking in that really blows me away. I love the end with I think it's a kind of a wristwatch. No, not a wristwatch. Some kind of little clock, right? Is like the main thing in that movie.
That seems right. You think I would remember
pocket
a little
watch,
bit better?
I think something like that.
Yeah. There's like a pocket watch, and yeah. But no, because we watched them all pretty close together, which was our goal, and we literally watched Yojimbo and then immediately watched A Fistful of Dollars to compare them. So
maybe one of these days we'll have to challenge each other to watch Once Upon a Time in the West. A movie I was kind of underwhelmed by the first time, but most everybody loves that movie, so maybe I need to give it another look.
I think that's the only one of like the Once Upon a Times now that I haven't seen.
In terms of, so we have Hollywood, America, and now we're talking about the West
and Mexico, and I've seen all of those.
Oh, right.
So yeah, the only one I haven't seen is in the West.
All right, so my good is The Irishman. So I was super hyped, as you probably know, to see the new Scorsese flick that I could sit down and relax in my own home to watch for all 3.5 hours of it. And Man, that's a long movie. It is a real long movie. It's like Old Man Goodfellas. The thing about this movie is, I think the reason why it's so like stretched out and drawn out is it's kind of an old man story of him, like, because it stars Robert De Niro. He's the Irishman, and he starts working for this mob boss played by Joe Pesci, which he's great in the movie. And then he ends up getting hooked up with Jimmy Hoffa, and yeah, so it's about all them together. I mean, there's some great scenes in there. I mean, Al Pacino definitely eats up the scenery. There's this like hilarious scene involving a fish in a car. It really didn't need to be 3.5 hours. It really kind of dragged in some places. I was kind of off put by Robert De Niro's blue eyes that they CGI'd in. I didn't mind the de-aging effects so much. And like the prosthetic makeup whenever they got really old was pretty good. I mean, it was pretty good. Like everybody on Letterboxd is saying like it's this masterpiece, and I don't know. I think that a lot of that comes with it just being, of course, a Scorsese flick. I think it's real solid, but I definitely much prefer the fever pace of like Casino or Goodfellas or even The Departed over the more melancholy / geezer gangster flick, The Irishman.
I'll keep that in mind for when I watch that one. So I mean, I haven't watched it yet. I mean, just watched 2 other 3-hour movies very recently, and
yeah, we're packing
got some
it in.
like, I've got some 2.5 to almost 3-hour movies on my watch list for the next month. So.
Yeah, when we wrap up tonight, I'm going to hopefully finish off I Saw the Devil. I started that last night.
Ooh, bueno. That movie's real fucking good.
Yeah, that opening murder scene. Yeah, that definitely took me by surprise.
Like,
okay.
That's sitting at my number 2 movie on the year currently. So
nice. Cool. Well, hopefully it gets better and better as it goes along. All right. So time for some friend of the show questions, and we actually have a new person that asked us a question. But let's start off with our good buddy Ben, who wants to know what we think are some of the most underrated kids films are. You want me to go first? Did you have any here?
I mean, I had a little bit harder time. I think I definitely go through less kid films than you. So I tried to look up some lists to try to kind of jog my memory. I kept coming up with one that kept popping up that I don't agree with, but I'm gonna delve into that. So one that kept popping up a lot was The Hunchback of Notre Dame. So first off, I was a child when that movie came out. So I guess maybe my perspective on that is skewed because the movie was huge when I was a kid. But when we were kids, so we're in our mid-30s. You didn't have the internet. You didn't have a smartphone. You couldn't read Twitter. You couldn't just have everybody's opinion. Your opinion on something was what you and your friends and everybody in school was. Well, every Disney movie that came out was freaking huge. So, like, I kind of find it hard that The Hunchback of Notre Dame is considered underrated. Now, I mean,
it's kind of in the waning years of the Disney Renaissance there. So it was they kind of started losing momentum after Pocahontas. Go ahead.
I mean, yeah, it wasn't Aladdin and Beauty and the Beast and Little Mermaid and all that, but I mean, it was still huge.
Yeah, it's a great movie, great villain.
Like, I find it really hard to put almost any Disney animated movie on the underrated list. Like, I've been seeing a meme about how Big Hero 6 is underrated because of Frozen, and I'm like, yo, everybody I know loves Big Hero 6, and Big Hero 6 is great. Yeah, I've seen Big Hero 6 is great. So I did some more research and looked around through some lists, and oddly enough, I am going to put a Disney movie. It's just not animated. Right. So I've only seen this movie one time, and it's been probably 14 years or so since I've seen it. And that is the Chronicles of Narnia, or the Chronicle of Narnia.
I can see that because that kind of lost steam. They did 3 movies.
Didn't they just do 2? Then they just do Prince Caspian afterwards, or did
there
they
was
do a third one?
There was like a Dawn Treader or something after that, and that was it.
Yeah, so I remember because the first one opened up to a bunch of fanfare and opened up real big and then just immediately died. Like Prince Caspian, like I don't even remember that being a thing afterwards. So I remember enjoying this movie. I remember, thinking Aslan looked really great then. Probably looks like trash by today's standards, but like I remember thinking that there was, a lot of cool stuff happened in the movie. But like I said, that's just kind of thinking back on it, being in my early 20s, I think, or 20 or 21 at the time. But
Disney probably had the mindset that they were going to try to like recreate what like the big success Lord of the Rings was, and did like do that kids version of it with the Lion, the Wardrobe, or whatever it is.
Yeah, because it's the first one's the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and then the second one was Prince Caspian, and I guess there's a third one. I don't know, but I like that's what I came up with. Because everything else was either maybe there are, but they were movies I hadn't heard of, and then a lot of people kept putting the Iron Giant, which I've never seen.
Ooh, that's great. You should see that one.
I've heard that, and then like James the Giant Peach kept coming up, but like I remember going on a field trip to see that, and so it's kind of like hard for me to be like that's underrated. I mean, maybe it was, but again, like my perspective of that is that it was big because we went on a field trip to see it, so it was a big deal. So
claymation. All right, yeah, I got a couple here. I see plenty of kids movies with the three young boys. I'm going to start off with one from last year that really impressed me. I had no expectations for this. I kind of wanted to see Venom that night, but my wife did not want me to take my son to see Venom, so we saw Smallfoot, the second of the 2018-19 Yeti unofficial trilogy, which was very odd how three different studios decided to come out with Abominable Snowman movies. But Smallfoot, by who did this? I think Warner Brothers did this. It was a darn good time. I had so many laughs. There was so much like there's some good songs in there, some good social commentary. I had a blast with that movie. I ended up buying it on Blu-ray. Smallfoot, definitely worth checking out. Last, I think probably 2 Thanksgivings ago, just on a whim, we watched this movie Leap, which is actually, I mean, it looks like a little girl movie on the surface. It's about this ballerina dancer, but it's a really solid animated flick. A lot of good feels in it, a lot of good dancing. Leap. I think it's also known as Ballerina in some areas. So that one's a good one. One from my childhood that got me interested in karate was Sidekicks with Chuck Norris. It's kind of like your Bobo version of The Karate Kid. But, man, I rewatched this movie, and I think that was like a year or two ago now. And it's silly in times, but I think it holds up pretty well. One movie that I saw earlier this year with Howie Mandel was Little Monsters. I think I talked about that on the show, right? I'm pretty sure I did. That's a fun, imaginative movie for kids. Kind of edgy in there too. So I put a pin in Polar Express because I want to talk about it again now. A lot of people say, man, the animation in this, like the motion capture stuff, man, it's just creepy looking. But that's true when you first watch it. But my oldest son, every single day he wanted to watch Polar Express when he was 3 years old. And so we had it on like every single day. And I caught like little bits in passing, and occasionally I'd watch it all the way through. But every time I watched this movie, I picked up on new little details that like I didn't see before. And there's a lot of nuance in the movie. The music's really good. It's a really good Christmas movie. And there's a lot of good stuff around it. Like I mentioned, we're going to this train ride up in North Carolina. That's Polar Express. The book's good. Tom Hanks plays like every character in the movie, which is pretty crazy. Yeah, I think it's a solid one. We used to go to the 4D version of it down at our aquarium in Charleston, but unfortunately they bulldozed that over, so we don't have that anymore. Polar Express. Once you get past the animation, that's a pretty good, darn good one. One of my favorite, so getting back to the Disney conversation, I have The Great Mouse Detective as being an underrated Disney movie. You don't hear a lot of people talk about it, but you rewatch it, and I think it's a really good one. I grew up with that one on VHS and watched it over and over again. So not a lot of people talk about Great Mouse Detective, kind of right before the Renaissance kicked off. And then, of course, my last one, my pride and joy, and American Tail by Don Bluth. I watch this every 4th of July. It's funny, you go back and like you watch Siskel and Ebert's review of this movie, and they like totally trashed it and was like, oh, it's too sad for kids, blah 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 blah. But man, the music in this movie like really always gets my feels. I mean, there's a great immigration story in there, and it's a good adventure. American Tail, that one's my jam. So it's a lot of kids movies. And then we have a new person, new friend of the show, Paul Inman, who wanted to find out what he thought were our best and worst time travel movies. Joey, you want to kick us off?
All right, so we'll do worst. So all movies that I've seen in some form or fashion. So I have Timeline, which has been a very long time since I've seen it, but it was pretty atrocious from what I recall.
Okay.
Yeah. Because I had to go and like look some of these up. I was like, there was a time travel movie with like Paul Walker. I was like, it was real bad. I was like, yeah. Yeah, and then
never even heard of it.
Oh yeah, no, it was bad. It's bad. Don't waste your time. Anybody who's watching this, or I'm sorry, listening to this, just don't. And then next up, I got Austin Powers in Goldmember, and some of the lists that I saw had this like rated real high as a time travel movie. And like, first of all, it's just a bad movie. It's the worst of the Austin Powers movies. Like I like the Austin Powers movies as a kid. You know, like, hey, we're spoofing on James Bond. You know, this, that, and the fifth, whatever. Nah, this one's bad. I don't care that Queen Beyonce's in the movie. Like, cool, we can look at her. You want to look at Queen Beyonce? Go watch her music videos. Like, just don't watch this. This movie's garbage. Like, it's just bad. And then this is the one I'm probably going to catch a lot of flack from. Maybe not from you. I don't know how you feel about it, but this movie has like a lot of cult following. I got a bunch of friends who like it. I've got friends who've got tattoos from this movie.
Wow.
And I watched this movie, and I traded watching with one of my best friends years ago. I convinced him to watch Pulp Fiction if I watched this movie, and then neither one of us came out of this deal happy. And it was Donnie Darko.
Oh, okay.
And I'm going to sum up my thoughts and feelings on this movie. Fuck Donnie Darko. And that's all I'm going to say.
Oh, did you have to use your brain?
Oh, yes. That's what hurt me, is having to use my brain. No, the movie is garbage and sucks, and everybody puts it up on this pedestal. And all the little fucking emo kids are like, oh, my feelings hurt, blah, blah, blah. No, that movie sucks. And the rabbit can go fuck themselves. You know what? The rabbit's dead, and Leonardo DiCaprio went and hung it on a fence to signify that his gang was back. Okay, that's what happened. Fuck Donnie Darko.
Oh man, it's been way too long for me to be able to comment on it. I mean, I remember enjoying it, and that theme song's pretty good, right?
No, I enjoyed literal nothing of this movie. Now, I guess to be fair, it's been like 15 years since I've seen that movie, but I have had no desire in any way, shape, or form.
I forgot time travel was even part of that movie.
Like, I wish I had forgotten about it. I wish I could forget that movie existed. I wish I wish to go back to Jim Carrey. I wish I could go in and Eternal Sunshine, that part of my brain where I watched that movie, and just get rid of it.
Same with Blue Velvet.
I'll keep Blue Velvet over that. Daddy wants to get rid of that part of my brain.
Did I see you post on a Criterion forum that you hated Throne of Blood?
I didn't like it. I didn't like it as much as I thought I was going to, because I love the name. Like, I love as of right now, of the Kurosawas that I've seen, I think it's my least favorite.
Interesting. I think I kind of see it as middle of the road. But anyways, we digress. Time travel movies. Okay, my worst. I wouldn't say this is a bad movie per se, but I heard a lot about this movie coming into it, and everyone was like, "Oh, it's so twisted, and I didn't see that coming." And it was this Predestination flick with Ethan Hawke, and like, yeah, I kept hearing how like how like mind bending it was. But like when I was watching it, I'm like, I know exactly where this is going, and I'm one that's like never looking to where it's going because I want to go. I want to take the ride, and man, the writing was like totally on the wall for me on this one, so I was pretty underwhelmed by that. I guess the worst of all time for me would be The Time Machine from 2002. I remember watching that when I was a kid, and even then I was like, oh, that's it. And I remember like. He invents the time machine, and then something happens to his wife. I think they get like robbed Batman style, and then he goes back in the time and fights random monsters and comes back and saves her. I think that's what happens, and I remember it sucked. It was like totally half-baked, and yeah, I really have no desire to revisit it, but I probably should since I hate it so much, and I watched it probably 20 years ago, coming up at least. And my last one, my controversial pick from Rian Johnson. I'm not a Looper fan. So Joseph Gordon-Levitt's so-called Bruce Willis makeup in this movie sucks. He looks nothing like Bruce Willis. He looks like a fucking dork. That movie, I mean, it was an okay premise, but then it gets so cheesy at the end where, oh, he turns the shotgun on himself to save the future. Oh, it was so corny. I did not like it, and I have a sense that you have a different opinion on this. Okay.
Well, if we go into my list of best time travel movies.
Oh no. Touché.
I mean, it was bound to happen. Our last couple of podcasts, we've been on the same page for everything. So, we'll go to best. My best. We'll work to that. So we got Back to the Future.
Of course.
We'll just Back to the Future, the trilogy. We'll just go there. T2.
Sure.
Endgame. Because they're kind of just like, none of these other ones matter. We'll just do whatever the hell we want. And, It's Endgame is like the biggest thing this year and ever. And it's Endgame. I kind of feel like I got to mention it. We'll throw kind of a sleeper pick out of there. We'll throw in 12 Monkeys.
All right, need to watch that one again.
Yeah, it's been a long time since I've seen it. But I just remember going, that movie was crazy. Like, where it's out of everywhere. And you got Brad Pitt and Bruce Willis. And it's all over the place, so I'm literally looking forward to rewatching that. We got an Arrow release of it, but hey, later this month we'll finally have that region free player, so we can watch that again. Nice. And then maybe not necessarily the best. I don't know if I put them in any order. I just kind of wrote them down, and that was Looper. Oh man, that Bruce Willis guy again. We were just talking about and Joseph Gordon-Levitt. So, putting the contacts in to look like Bruce, he spent a lot of time memorizing Bruce's mannerisms and speech patterns to kind of, so he could be him. I thought that was really cool. It's been a long time since I've seen it, but, closing the loop, killing himself, that was a good touch. I also like Rian Johnson, come to find out.
To be fair, this is the only movie I don't like of Rian Johnson's. I like Last Jedi, and I like Brick. So.
Oh yeah, Brick was great. I saw that earlier this year. I effing love that movie, and I effing love The Last Jedi. Hot take for everybody who's listening: that movie is way better than most of you people on the internet give it credit for. But anywho,
yep.
I mean, I thought it was really good. I own it on Blu-ray. It's been a while since I've watched it. Maybe I should revisit it, but. I thought it was dope. So
there you go. All right. So you already mentioned Back to the Future. That's an all-time banger. I just happened to Google this just to see what they popped up, and I didn't think of this at first as a time travel movie, but Groundhog Day. I guess it's more of a time loop movie. But yeah, that's pretty fantastic with Bill Murray. Hilarious. Didn't watch it last Groundhog Day, but I should definitely watch it this coming because, that movie is hilarious. Love it. Which one do I go with next? Should I go with the rom-com or the artsy one?
Go with the artsy one.
All right, so Primer by Shane Carruth. Now, this is a movie that will bend your mind. Yeah, Shane Carruth is like this like do-it-all low-budget filmmaker. It's a shame that he hasn't made more stuff. This thing is super artsy. Like, it starts off real straightforward. It's these business guys, and they're like, oh, we have this idea. It's kind of vague. And as the movie goes along, you see that like they're going back in time to like manipulate the stock market. But then the movie starts kind of folding on top of itself, and it gets more complicated. And you're like, wait, what's going on? What? And this is one of the ones that like really got me into watching like analysis videos, because like there's people like dissecting the timeline of this thing and it getting really, really interesting, and it all like kind of makes sense and falls into place. Primer's a good time. I definitely enjoyed that movie. And then my sappy rom-com is About Time. Have you seen this one?
No, I haven't.
I think Amy Adams is in this movie. Let me double check that. Amy Adams, or maybe is Amy Adams? No, Amy Adams.
Is it Rachel McAdams?
Rachel McAdams, thank you. Because she's from Mean Girls, right?
Yes, she is, and she does a lot of rom-coms. So we're talking about rom-coms. You should probably mention that she's in The Notebook. Like, that's her rom-com that she's known for. I guess it's not really a com, but anyway.
We'll stick to the time travel. Man, this movie gets... I've seen it twice now, and it gets my heartstrings every time. It's about this dude that like goes into a closet, and he can like relive moments of his life in order to like hook up with like so he goes back in time so he can say the right thing to hook up with a girl, and it's really cute how it all kind of plays out. And then towards the end you definitely get the feels, because he has to make a big choice of if he goes back or if he doesn't go back. And I highly recommend About Time, a rom-com time travel movie that gets you in the feels. So all right, so let's move on to our movie club pick of the week. And our feature movie this week was from my movie club list. It was A Touch of Zen, which is Criterion Spine 825. So I'll throw that out there for any Criterion fans. And I want to read the Criterion Synopsis just to kind of do a change of pace here. Typically, whenever I'm watching a movie and I'm like, what is so special about this movie? Because typically I do try to watch a Criterion every other movie or so. I always go to their website and kind of read their write-up on it, because they always make things seem like really glorious, best of all time. I mean, that's why they picked it for the collection, right? So this one says, visionary barely begins to describe this masterpiece of Chinese cinema and martial arts movie making. A Touch of Zen by King Ho depicts the journey of Yang, a fugitive nobleman in disguise who seeks refuge in a remote and alleged haunted village. The sanctuary she and her three companions find with a shy scholar is shattered when a nefarious swordsman uncovers her identity. Pitting the five against legions of blade-wielding opponents, at once, I'm not sure what that word is, the Huzai film, the tale of a spiritual quest and a study in human nature. A Touch of Zen is an unparalleled work of Hu's formidable career and an epic of the highest order, characterized by breathtaking action, choreography, stunning widescreen landscapes, and innovative editing. Okie dokie. So I put this on my movie club list because it's a Criterion, of course. Want to get as many of those in as possible. I had heard that it was reminiscent of Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, which we'll probably get into that some. And I knew that you loved Asian movies, so I was like, what better than to tee this up for our little club? So, Joey, what'd you think of A Touch of Zen?
Well, right before I went to watch it, you sent me the message, or maybe not right before, I guess like the day before, earlier in the day, whatever. You told me to like, hey, watch Ang Lee's little interview on the channel about it. Because, this one is on the channel. So anybody who has the Criterion channel, you don't have to go out and spend $40 on the Blu-ray or, at Barnes & Noble, or, like about 30 on Amazon to get this. You can just watch it on the channel. But there's an interview where Ang Lee talks about how this movie inspired him. So Ang Lee did direct Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and that was one of the first things that I kind of really noticed, is that this movie definitely inspired Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. The other thing that I immediately noticed was the opening scene with the spider, which was definitely some foreshadowing symbolism, and then the all of this, and it continued throughout the movie, but right straight from the spider scene into just the sprawling landscape shot. There was just so much nature porn. The movie was gorgeous. Just gorgeous.
A little reminiscent of the beginning of Ran, if I say so myself.
I mean,
with the majestic mountains.
Yes, although I would say that I guess Ran is reminiscent of this, as this is older than Ran, but
true.
Yeah, but definitely as I saw Ran first. I mean, the movie is just gorgeous. I mean, there was so much. There was a lot of good in this movie, and then there was, I think maybe me and you had some of the same issues with this movie. We have a lot of actually having looked at some of your thoughts on it. So good. The fight in the bamboo forest, really good.
That reminded me a lot of the end of Fellowship. Did you get that vibe at all? Where like they're fighting through the forest.
I didn't, but like I can see that. I just
especially with the arrows. Oh, sorry.
I can see that. I just was more thinking because I had watched that video, like you said, because you went in cold. I was thinking more of specifically the bamboo scene in Crouching Tiger.
Okay, I need to rewatch that one.
I watched Crouching Tiger earlier this year for the first time.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I like this more than Crouching Tiger. There were things they did in Crouching Tiger I didn't like all the air running that just took me out of it.
Okay. Actually, Crouching Tiger was my first ever foreign language flick.
Oh, nice. I don't even remember.
Back in 1999.
Might have been like Hero maybe or something. I don't even know at this point. That's kind of a thing I wish I had remembered. The belt sword. The belt sword.
Yep, that's pretty awesome.
Dope. So, and then the monk or the abbot, who is just a literal G, just a straight up literal G. Like,
yeah.
I kept talking earlier about guys in movies who were hard, and nah, that dude might be the hardest guy I've seen in any movie. Or I'm going to say he has the sand. For another movie we watched, that dude has the sand. You can't mess with him. The other thing is that I wish you wouldn't have made me watch the video for is once I knew that all those jumps were on trampolines, all I could think about is, oh, that dude's on a trampoline. That dude's on a trampoline. Because like as soon as I noticed it, it was like you could tell they were jumping on trampolines. You know what? We all grew up with trampolines, if you didn't have one, someone had ones. You know what jumping on a trampoline looks like. So it was like trampoline. But
sorry.
Nah, it's good. I mean, it was more good than bad watching that, like 13-minute video beforehand.
The main reason I wanted you to watch it is because Ang Lee talks about King really being more about like capturing the atmosphere of a scene more than a solid narrative, and that's really what was lacking for me in this movie was a solid narrative. Like I had the hardest time following what the heck was going on in this movie, especially for that first hour. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, I don't know if you did read my review or not. No, I had no clue what in the hell was going on in this movie, and it was like, oh, okay.
And you read subs a lot better than I do.
Oh yeah, no, and it was like, and then it was like, all right, dude's painting a picture.
Yeah.
He's a scholar. His mom's pissed at him, wants him to get a real job. He's like, nah, fam, I don't want to do that. Oh, here's homegirl. Oh, he sleeps with homegirl. These guys want to kill her. He's going to make a trap. They're going to fight. All right. Sure.
Yeah, exactly. I think the first action scene.
And that's a 3.5 hour movie. Like, it did.
Yeah.
Okay, it probably also didn't help that we started that movie at like 1 o'clock and we finished it at like 5:30 because we had to keep pausing for different things. So we took what was already a long movie and made it longer, which probably didn't help matters any either. So yeah, nah.
So yeah, I'm glad to hear that you kind of had a hard time following it as well. I mean, I got the basic structure where you got this like impish artist guy, and like he's talking to his mom. And man, I flipped through this movie right before we started recording, and there is a lot of scenes of him just talking with his mom. I'm like, all right, get on with it. Man, that first hour is so slow. The first fight scene, which all the fight scenes are amazing. If we would have cut this down quite a bit and focused on some of like the beautiful scenery, some of the interesting aspects of the story, but man, there's so much. I wouldn't even call it character development. It's almost just like, I guess, atmosphere scenes. I mean, they really build this whole like haunted aspect of the town up quite a bit. So yeah, I found that frustrating. I think the first action scene's at like 56 minutes in, and like I said, all the action's great. I love, man, this movie had a lot more swordplay than a lot of the samurai movies I watch. I mean, there's a lot of great, and I love the sound effects on the blades, the twang, 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 ting, ting, ting. All that sword stuff is just awesome. From my memory, I think I like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon more because I think there is more action scenes in it, but I definitely need to revisit that.
I mean, that's fair. Like I said, the running on literal air and for whatever reason just bothered the living shit out of me. And I think it was because it's because like the rest of the movie is basically realistic, and then they just run on air and they just jump. And
it
it's
does
like,
kind of come out of nowhere. I agree.
And it's like everything else. If they had if you know there was laser beams or you know Kamehamehas or some shit like that, and then they could jump and run, it'd be fine. But it's like no, everything else is cool, and then it's like, oh look, we're running on air, and it's like it takes me out of everything else that was going on. So
it's like for me, I'm like looking for these like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon references, and then all of a sudden I see them bouncing around. I'm like, hey, that's like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Like I like. That's kind of cool. So that's kind of how I came about it. And then yeah, I totally like. I read that like the artist guy hooks up with the fugitive girl. Like I totally missed that in watching through, and then like you know he chases her to the nunnery or whatever, and like he gets their baby, which that was quick. I
guess it was, you know, in a long period of time because me and Nightflyer were like, oh, guess that means it's been a long time. Thanks.
Yeah, I guess so. You were saying, so I didn't really remember the spiders until I was flipping back through it. What did you think the spiders were symbolizing?
So, traps. Step into my office, or step into my trap. Step into my office. Set the spider to the fly, and you know. So he's the guy who drew all the plans. He did everything. He drew anything that needed writing, drawing. He was a scholar who did it. And then when you know the army, the brigade, whatever it was that was coming for her, he was like, nah, draw him here. Here's the plans. We'll make a trap. And then there was like a scene while he was doing that. There was literally like a spider building a web, like to the side somewhere.
Oh,
if
wow.
my memory's yeah.
Is
or
that
maybe it was,
is his big trap the ghost stuff, or is that something else?
Well, he wanted to get everybody to think that was haunted. That was like in that same scene. But then he wanted to like lure them in, so I think Yang could start like slaughtering them or whatever.
Right.
So, and then I think after that they start hit the right after that scene they go into the scene where they split the screen to start the haunting, and then they go into the backstory where you first meet the monk and find out that he's a complete and total BA. So yeah.
Okay.
That might be a little out of sequence and order. So if it is, and anybody who's like, you know, I apologize. I don't remember quite the sequencing. The movie's long, but that sounds right. But I could have that out of order a little bit.
Okay. Yeah. I didn't really put the setting a trap and spiders together like that, but yeah, that makes total sense. Especially how he kind of looks at the aftermath of the ghost trap deal or haunted. How they spring soldiers in on like during that part. Another part of the cinematography that I really enjoyed was beaming light. Like all throughout this, you see this sunlight just like going through windows, going through the bamboo. All that was just really beautiful. Really set a great tone. The music, I mean, is is there ever an Asian movie where the music's not good? I mean, it's always atmospheric and, puts you right there in the Far East. So there you go. I mentioned the sword play is excellent. I got a kick out of the badass monk guy. His little red cloth on him kind of looked like bricks.
I mean, it's because you hit him and it felt like you hit a brick wall.
There you go. Symbolism.
You're talking about the sun. Every time he was there, the sun was always beaming on him, and so my first thought, he's a Jesus figure, but obviously he wouldn't be a Jesus figure in the East. He's going to be a Buddha figure. So yeah.
Yep.
And obviously as he's a monk, it makes sense. So
yeah, the bamboo forest, pretty cool scene, especially with how far back the camera is. You got to think of like how they must have been dolling through, the area and just kind of capture all that is pretty awesome. Doesn't last. I mean, for that being like one of the highlights of the whole movie, it didn't really last as long as I thought it would. But it was a different time for action. Let's see here. It's cool. Like after the haunted town, Springtrap scene, like he's going through and he's like looking at all the stuff he set up, which I don't recall. You don't really see him set it up. You just see what it looks like after the fact, right?
Yeah, if my memory serves, yeah.
Okay. And then I was like, we just were reading on the Criterion Synopsis, and they were talking about like human nature and stuff. And so, yeah, there's like all this like feeling bad about the carnage of all these people dying. So you have that as well. And then, so the girl takes off, and the guy gets the baby, and I'm kind of blanking and what happens until the end. Whenever you get this this real stubborn bad guy that starts going after him, and
they chase him like he's asleep, and then some guy sees him, and there's a wanted note, and he snitches him out, and then this guy comes for him, and then the monk and the girl come back for him, and then there's a fight, and then
they defeat him, right?
Yeah, and then the monk's dying, but he's like bleeding gold blood.
Well, that's at like they defeat the antagonist. And then, like, all of a sudden they end up in, like, this, like, deserty looking area. And the antagonist is like, I bow down to you, but it was a trick. And then he stabs the monk. And that's when he starts bleeding, right?
Yeah. Again, at this point, we're 4. The movie's not that long, but we're, like, 4. I'm just, like, end. Stop being Lord of the Rings with 75 endings. Just end.
Yeah,
maybe not quite
much.
that many, but yeah, just end.
Yes, it starts kind of going off the rails because like you start seeing like film negative. Like, I mean, it was cool looking. And then like the badass monk guy, he starts bleeding blood or bleeding gold, and he gets like up on this hill and like he looks like the Buddha with the sun behind him. So that's pretty cool. The stubborn antagonist then like becomes possessed and like goes up to a cliff and falls, and that's the end of him. Like the sky turns red. So some trick shots there, some negative shots there, and that's pretty much the whole movie. In talking about it, I definitely see that the spider trap thing being one of the big symbolic things that does, I think, really work about this movie. The end, that's just all about like achieving enlightenment, I think. I'm not really sure if there is much more to it than that, you think?
It's achieving Zen or whatever, I guess. It's a touch of Zen, I guess.
Right, same concept.
Roll credits. Though. Yeah, roll credits.
Cool.
So...
Okay, so to tie a bow on this one, a lot of back and forth story that I really wasn't following. Maybe if I grew up, maybe if I was Chinese, maybe it would some of the story would sink in a little bit easier. I could follow it easier, but I think as a foreign language film, it was a little hard to follow, a little drawn out in parts. The action parts are great. All the cinematography is beautiful. The symbolism, like you had mentioned. But yeah, it's quite the movie for the smaller good parts within it. So just 3.5 stars for me.
It's the same thing I gave it was 3.5 because of just how insanely beautiful it was. Um, and then, the fighting, the action, all of that was good. But yeah, the story was a little bit hard to follow. So, just 3.5. It's definitely a good movie. Maybe a second watch would, bring back some of the story and flush it out.
Yeah, a lot of times with these movies that you don't really understand the story, it kind of really falls more into place the second time when you know what to expect. I guess the other movie that's related to this, that's also in the Criterion, is called Dragon Inn. So, I'm not really in a hurry to see that, but at some point, watch it and kind of know what King Who is all about, if that's how you pronounce it. Sorry if not. All right, so our challenge movie. All right, so like I mentioned earlier, in honor of The Irishman coming out on Netflix, I wanted to check out a Scorsese epic that I hadn't seen in a long time. It's been on my DVD shelf forever, or I should say my Blu-ray shelf. And finally, this gave me a perfect reason to revisit Gangs of New York. So, Joey, you want to run down what this Scorsese movie is all about?
All right, so Gangs of New York is a 2002 American epic period drama film directed by the aforementioned Martin Scorsese, set in the New York slums and inspired by Herbert Asbury's nonfiction book, The Gangs of New York. The screenplay was written by Jake Cox, Steven Zalian, and Kenneth Longerin. The film stars Leonardo DiCaprio, Daniel Day-Lewis, and Cameron Diaz. Yeah, that's the synopsis. You want me to read the whole?
No, that's plenty. So, when was the last time you watched this?
Within like the last maybe 5 years, I had somehow one that had slipped through, that I had never seen. But in watching it, like again, I remembered the big fight at the beginning, but outside of that, there was a lot of stuff I didn't remember, about it. So, like, cause I had went through my letterbox trying to see if I could find it, like, when I had watched it, because I thought I had watched it, maybe 3 years ago, 2 years ago, and like, nah, and I just couldn't put my finger on when I watched it. But I definitely enjoyed the rewatch on that today. So
nice. Yeah, I hadn't seen it since it was back in theaters. I don't really remember how it came about, where me and my friend decided we were going to go check this out. But yeah, me and my buddy were there watching this movie, and something about the beginning of this movie with the stylization with like these guys in the top hats and the dead rabbits. After that opening battle sequence, he was just like, yo, I'm out of here. Let's jet. And I'm like, but the movie just started. He's like, but I don't like it. I'm like, man, just hang tight. It'll get better. Come on. He's like, no, I don't know. And finally, I talked him back into the theater. That was like the one time, like, where I almost had to leave a movie. When I was younger, I had an incident with my older son where we had to leave his first movie because he was going crazy. That's a whole nother story. But yeah, so my best friend tried to get me to leave this movie. I wouldn't do it. I saw all of it, and I had pretty much the same reaction as my first time. Like, that opening battle sequence, which we'll probably get into here in a few seconds, is great. Really kind of drawn out in the middle, and I thought the end was better than what I remembered. It's kind of a weird theme tonight of like movies being a little bit too long between The Irishman, this, and A Touch of Zen. Typically, I'm down for long movies. I'm in for the long haul, but some of these didn't really merit being as long as they were. So you said you really enjoyed it. Let's get into that.
Oh yeah. This one felt like it just kind of breezed by. Like, I mean, it still felt long, but I mean it just blew by. So
nice.
The opening battle scene was awesome. You've got Daniel Day-Lewis, who might just be the best actor of our generation, with Leonardo DiCaprio, who may also be the other best actor of our generation.
Joaquin Phoenix.
Joaquin's really good. But I mean, it's kind of hard to argue with DDL's 3 Oscars and Leo.
Yeah. Different leagues for sure.
Yeah.
Well,
Leo should probably
the gap's
have more
closing
than
though.
one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Leo should probably have more than one, but I mean, in this movie alone, like, Daniel Day-Lewis just took this movie over and just.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's great. That
like,
that really, really weird accent.
So I don't remember where I was at, but I was reading something about it, after the movie, and
Yeah.
they went through and did a bunch of research, and so Leo had an Irish accent, but it was like half Irish, half American because he grew up in America, and
Mm-hmm.
so they did this thing where they took all these accents and they tried to make it as obviously as accurate as they could get it. Obviously no one lived in 1862, so they can't just like jump in their time machine and go back and find it. So I thought it was really cool that they had the top hat, and they had these long pants where they looked like they were wearing stilts. So basically he's Uncle Sam. Or all of them look like Uncle Sam, which kind of, I guess, is what they were shooting for, to be reminiscent of what that people, I guess, dressed for like that. But that's kind of what they all looked like, what Uncle Sam would be. But in the the movie, they're all like down with the Union. We hate Lincoln. Or for all intents and purposes, if we want to extrapolate that to 2019, fuck Trump.
I think what Uncle Sam was more of like a World War II thing, wasn't it? Or was that?
I mean, Uncle Sam wants you, like they were starting the draft kind of thing. But I mean, that's kind of, maybe that's where they took Uncle Sam from, was how people dressed then. But that's
maybe
kind of what that reminded me of. Because he had the big top hat, he had the big giant mustache. It was kind of cool looking, and that
Actually,
kind of that whole dress.
Uncle Sam dates back to the War of 1812, so yeah, quite a while.
Yeah. So, that it was all really cool, and maybe I enjoyed it because of some of the historical nuances.
Yeah, I definitely noticed that more on flipping back through it. All right, so with the opening battle scene is great. I love the snow. It's kind of that sweeping camera shot. It reminded me a lot of Braveheart. The one real weird thing is like there's a few minutes where like all these like blades are being slashed around everywhere, and I'm like, there's a lot of stabbing going on for no blood, and this being an R-rated movie. What's going on? And then all of a sudden, like the blood started appearing everywhere. I was like, oh, did they kind of have like a delayed like gore effect here? Did you notice that at all?
Like for a second, I was like, "There's no blood," and then there was blood.
Yeah.
So they hit with that. I also came up with a new theory while watching this movie.
Okay.
So in the late 2000s, early 2010s, Liam Neeson is like the ultimate badass. Liam Neeson can't be killed. He trained Jedis. He's the man. He can't be killed. He trained Batman. So I've come up now. The only way to kill Liam Neeson is you have to have two blades.
Okay.
Because let's look who killed him. Darth Maul. And Darth Maul had a dual-sided lightsaber.
Yeah.
And in this movie, Daniel Day-Lewis, he had two blades. So
You might be onto something there.
Yeah, right. So anyway, I digress off of that.
Yeah, he's pretty good to open up the movie. It's very caricature at the beginning of the movie, actually throughout the whole movie with him, with Daniel Day-Lewis being this like butcher figure and Liam Neeson starting off at this priest figure. Let's see. This reminded me a lot of Scorsese's movie, The Age of Innocence, which has a whole lot of extra like stylization to it. Like for example, remember that scene like Leo's like walking over a bridge and he throws this Bible off into the water and it like goes into slow motion and the water comes up over the Bible and you're like, oh, okay, Scorsese, moving on.
I mean, yeah, that shot does kind of seem out of place because there's like no more slow motion in it. Like it seems like that's almost a shot that goes, into like The Matrix or something, that kind of movie where it's like really slow. There's like no more real slow motion in the movie at all. But it was a cool shot. It looked really good. I mean, it was pretty. It just a little seems out of place, but was good.
The first time I watched it, did you think the narration worked in this movie? For some reason, I just thought the narration just kind of felt like unnecessary. But that was just my initial impression.
I didn't really have any issue with it. Like I thought that like one of the purposes that it served was that Amsterdam is coming back to get his revenge on Bill the Butcher, but yet he's in his gang, and you're like, okay, well of course he's getting close to him, but then that whole line with the being under the wing of the dragon is oddly warm, or however it's exactly worded.
That's a good quote.
It's a good quote, but he's like, I know he's the dragon, but it's comforting being here because you see him like, oh, he's like my father again. He's teaching, because he was teaching him with the butchering and the killing and some of that other stuff. It's going to a weird I guess juxtaposition within his brain kind of thing. But I thought the narration worked. I didn't have which I like narration in movies most of the time. So I didn't have any real issue with it.
I think one of the big things that stands out is Daniel Day-Lewis's character, they consider themselves like American natives, and like Liam Neeson's group, there are like Irishmen / immigrants. So it's this big kind of like nationalist kind of vibe to the story, where like even back then, like people were real down on immigrants. So I really like that vibe about it, especially since that, unfortunately, that to this day, people that live in America, like new Americans come in and we're the land of immigrants, but they seem to think that new immigrants are not as valuable as, whenever our ancestors moved here. So a little soapbox from me there. But anyways.
I mean, that's kind of, that's the whole point of the movie. The movie starts in like 1846, and it's like, brother, like our country like just gained its independence like 70 years ago from another country. Like everybody has only been here for 100 years, a couple hundred years, you're going to go back to, the Mayflower and all that stuff. So it's like, you don't really have a freaking leg to stand on. One of the other things, if we're going to go back to like historical things, so when you jump forward and we're into the main part of the movie after the battle, so it's during the Civil War. So they show the Emancipation Proclamation, and so all the slaves and stuff are free, slavery is abolished. So everyone nowadays acts like, well, in the North, everyone loved African Americans, everyone loved black people. They were just free, they just ran around, did whatever they wanted, type of thing. And in this movie, they clearly depicted that isn't how it was. You still had tons of
prejudice.
Lots of prejudice, lots of N-words. I mean, you had some people who were like, yeah, they're cool, and then there's lots of people who were like,
yeah, it's pretty startling, like all the lynching that you start seeing at the end of the movie during the riots.
The one scene where Bill the Butcher's, he hates the Irish too, but he calls someone an Irish N-word, and he goes, well, a black man would do this for a nickel, an Irishman's going to do this for a dime, and a white guy used to do this for a quarter, and it's like, God, dude, like chill out. And it's and it's prejudice like that, it's still, like you said, still lingers today. And it was just, and this movie was made 17 years ago, about 150 years ago, and it's like,
yep.
And that stuff still goes on. And then basically they had a literal war, a literal battle in the streets in a plaza because you're Irish and you weren't born here. And it's like, but like, dude, you're 30, because he said he's 47, so you were like 31. That means your parents might not have even been born here, or their grandparents weren't born here. Like calm down. So it was.
So getting back to some of the different historical things that are depicted in this movie, flipping through it real quick right before we started, I saw a lot of that the Chinese culture and like traditional like Chinese dancing and decorations and so forth. So I thought that was a nice touch. The production design in this is real cool. It seems kind of almost fantastical at the same time, because like you do have these gangs wearing these bright colors. So it seems like kind of a page out of history. I think I watched a little bit of the documentary where Leo and Scorsese were talking about it, and they kind of were saying this is kind of a period of New York history that's been lost, and that's really depicted towards the end of the film, in the montage. All right, so I talked about, okay, so you had mentioned like, okay, so in the story, he like becomes Leo, whose father was killed by the butcher, becomes like buddy with the butcher, and like I think this is the biggest issue is like I never really got a sense where we see like Leo's like turmoil about like, this guy killed my father, but at the same time I feel comfortable under his protection. Like I never felt like that real like dilemma. Like all of a sudden he's like, okay, now I'm gonna get ready to kill him because I'm gonna start throwing knives at a board. And then I got a kick out of his buddy who like introduced him to like this crowd of folks, and then his buddy gets like real jealous because Leo gets popular, and so his buddy rats him out to Daniel Day-Lewis, and so Daniel Day-Lewis is wise that Leo is the priest's son.
Well, not because he's popular, but because he's boning Cameron Diaz.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Did you like Cameron Diaz in this movie?
I mean, she really just serves that plot point. That's what she ends up doing. Is she serves that kind of plot point, and I guess she's a high profile female lead. And she's nice to look at, kind of thing. I mean, she's a good enough actress. I didn't think there was anything wrong with her, but she steals stuff. I guess she shows that even the women, are living kind of that criminal element lifestyle in that area. Type deal, even though they're in on it, and so I mean, I didn't have any problem with her. Like, I didn't think she detracted from the movie, and then she serves a plot point. She serves that dude wants to get with her. She doesn't want to get with him, but I do think that was the kind of, I thought they would have ended up going about that kind of silly because she picks him at the dance. She doesn't pick Johnny. She picks Amsterdam.
Yep.
Amsterdam ends up like, hey, I don't want Bill the Butcher's leftovers or whatever. And then I guess there's the scene at like the boxing thing where she's hanging out with Johnny, but I guess it's not everything. And then, or maybe I missed that, and that's where they're together because he comes back in with that scene. Is there anybody in 5 points you haven't fucked? And she's like, yeah, you. And then they end up getting together, and that's where he sees her, and that's when he sees them and goes and rats him out. So.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the whole pickpocketing aspect to kind of get her and Amsterdam together. I don't know. I was just really wasn't that intrigued about her character. I mean, she doesn't really stick out. I mean, she feels like she belongs in the period. But I think by far my favorite scene is probably the most uncomfortable scene whenever Daniel Day-Lewis kind of goes after her and like it's like, hey, for old time's sake, let me throw knives at you, and that was real intense. That was pretty crazy. And then it kind of gets a little melodramatic where like, oh yeah, I had his baby, but didn't she have an abortion or something? And now he wants nothing to do with me or something like that. I forget.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if it's an abortion or
a cesarean.
Yeah, because they're like they cut it out of me, and so I don't know if it was because he said he never had a son, so I wasn't sure if they were implying it was his baby or if it was someone else's baby, since she's kind
gets
of a
around.
looser, she gets around kind of thing. So
Gotcha.
I mean, he doesn't like scarred up women, but that scene where he's just goading Amsterdam with the knife throwing kind of thing, like he should have backed out and had a different plan, but he didn't know he had been betrayed and didn't know that he's being goaded. So, but I do like that he had his time, and he had his plan, and he was taking his time. I do think it's very interesting that in that speech when Bill the Butcher's like, oh yeah, he tried to kill me from the back like a thief, and it's like, yo, you stabbed his father in the back. Like, yeah, it wasn't a battle, but you did just kind of, you sneak up on him and you're like the priest and you stabbed him in the back. But that whole speech that he gave him when he's sitting there with the American flag draped over his back, and he's in the bed, and Amsterdam's in the bed, and he's telling him about how his how the priest gave him the scar on the face and beat him up but then didn't kill him, so he scooped out his eye, and that's the only man in 15 years or his whole life that he killed worth remembering. Like that whole scene.
Yeah, it was a great scene. Yeah.
I definitely think that Daniel Day-Lewis is at his best when he's being a jerk. Because even though I didn't like There Will Be Blood, and maybe I need to revisit that too. And
yes, you do.
Well, that was back before I watched movies with a different way that I watch them now. But I definitely didn't because I didn't enjoy that, or because it was that movie and No Country and I watched them
Okay.
both around the same time, and I was just like, I don't see what the big deal is with both of these movies, even though Javier Bardem and Daniel Day-Lewis were both great in their respective roles in those movies.
I didn't notice until I was flipping back through that he has like this eagle glass eye thing.
Yeah, which apparently he had as a contact in war, and he never broke character while filming this movie. And he apparently went out to dinner with Martin and Leo in character and got into a fight in Italy
Nice.
because he stayed in character, because that's what Daniel Day-Lewis does. Cause,
Yes, he does.
yeah. So,
More of the historical stuff, like Cameron Diaz, she wants to get into the whole 49ers movement where people are moving out to San Francisco to go probably get gold, I would think, at that point still. It's funny, isn't she like draw on a map to where she wants to sail like all the way around South America instead of like crossing the United States, because that was a pretty arduous journey back then.
yeah, I mean, both were pretty arduous. It's like, and also, she has this thing about, oh, they have gold right out of pans, and it's like, well, that was from 49, you're in 62. I think that's outdated, but I guess they still kind of had that going on, just maybe not as much. But I
Or
guess
probably slow.
yeah, I guess going down around South America and back up was probably safer than trying to take a cart or a horse and wagon
Right.
across the country during the Civil War.
True. And shoot, Native Americans were still prominent then, so.
Yeah, so you had Native Americans, the Civil War. Because I mean, hell, you saw you see what in the movie. Granted, because a riot breaks out, how hard it was just to get to the damn boat. So
Yeah. Yeah, that was one of my friend's favorite parts, was like they depict how like the Irish come right off the boat. They sign them up to be in the Union Army, and then they ship them off to war. So seeing that cyclical nature of, the Union shipping or taking the immigrants and putting them right into battle to get that advantage over the South. That was really cool to see that depicted.
think they'll feed us now.
Yeah. Potato, because it was the potato famine that really got a lot of the Irish to come over in the first place, right?
I don't know if that's when the potato famine was, but I mean, there was definitely a humongous potato famine that got them to leave at one point, and I think they just kept coming and coming, and I don't know if that's when it was or not. But I mean, that seems about right, and so they just left and left and left, and we were supposed to be the land of opportunity, and if they didn't get drafted, then they got anything they earned, they got to pay Bill the Butcher. So
the potato famine was between 1845 and 1849.
So yeah,
cool. All right, so that kind of leads us up to the climax. We see that the Irish, they get that one guy to run for mayor for them, or is it sheriff?
the sheriff.
Okay. And he ends up winning, so that kind of shows like the whole political kind of rallying during that time period, and he gets elected, and then the butcher's just like, yeah, not so much, I'm gonna take you out. So and that kind of is what
kills him in the back in broad daylight. Doesn't give one single iota of a fuck. Just kills him.
And John C. Reilly's in the movie.
Yeah, John C. Reilly, he was an Irishman at the beginning, and then he's a constable who's under Bill's employ the rest of the movie. And he was retaliation for the sheriff, right? They retaliate by.
I think he came first.
Yeah. They killed him first, and then they did the election.
They start doing the rabbit stuff after their sheriff gets killed.
Yeah. Well, he did the first rabbit after he had been stabbed and then branded on the face, which didn't leave a scar once it healed. But hey.
I missed that, but I'll take your word for it. It's a pretty cool shot whenever there's this wide, and it shows I guess this big wood structure. I guess they must be building something, and you see all these little cubes in the wood. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Like when they come walking up to the church, is that what you're talking about?
They must have been building the church or something. It must have been the frame of it or something. Yeah, those were some really cool shots. And flipping back through it, the scene where we do get Leo's monologue, not a voiceover, and he's like rallying with his people, and like you see the flames and stuff. Yeah, that was a pretty cool moment as well. And then, okay, so that takes us to the very end where you want to describe it, or should I go for it?
All right, so they're doing the funeral and they're taking the sheriff to the walk, and Leo sees Bill and he's like, challenge, and Bill says challenge accepted. Yeah. They discuss their terms, but while this is going on, now the draft starts going off in full effect, and the poor people are like, screw this, and they start rioting. So the riot happens on the same day that the native sons of America and all of the Irishmen and their gangs are going to have their battle. So they start rioting. They're going up and down the rich towns. They're going through the buildings. They're just rioting, destroying everything. While you have this going on, Cameron Diaz, his character, has told good old Leo that she's leaving for San Fran. And he's like, hey, wait a day, I'm going to come with you. And she's like, you'll be dead. And he's like, nah, I'm going to come with you. It'll be over. And she's like, it won't. And she leaves. And he cuts his face with the same razor from the beginning, which we hadn't talked about, leave the blood on, very unsanitary, all that good jazz, but cuts his face with the same straight razor.
Yeah. Blood on the blade. That was like one of Neeson's things, right?
Yeah, because he went to go wipe it off, and he's like, no, son, you leave the blood on the blade. And then you find out that the sheriff, who had been the merc from the beginning with the club, he didn't actually try to get his 40 gold or how much ever gold it was. He'd taken the blade for safekeeping and given it back. So now he has the knife that had killed his father. He has the shillelagh, or the club, that killed the sheriff, and now he has the straight razor. So they go to their battle. And right as he goes to call the battle, the gunship starts firing on the square to start trying to help quell the riot that's going through the rest of the town, because the army is having problems quelling it. And you just start seeing all of this gunfire, explosions, cannon fire, and you start seeing Amsterdam start shouting, Bill, Bill, Bill. And then Bill is like doing this ninja stealth, slashing him in the back of the legs. At this point, Cameron Diaz has been like jumped right in front of the ship. They're trying to take her bag because they think she's rich. And so she ends up shooting a lady. And then this big explosion happens. And then laid out side by side or next to each other is Bill and Amsterdam. And they stand up. And there's Bill, and he's got a piece of shrapnel in the gut. And he says something like, I'm going to die a real American. And he pulls it out, and he's bleeding. And he doesn't even try to fight. Amsterdam just stabs him. And blood splatters in Amsterdam's face. And then he stabs him again. And he's dead.
Yeah.
And it's this very anticlimactic end amidst all these kind of beautiful, kind of like warlike shots. But this is very anticlimactic end, in my opinion, because you had this whole movie building to this fight between this guy who's built up as this crazy fighter who can't be touched. Hell, he took a shot in the shoulder earlier in the movie and then sat down, watched the rest of the play, got the bullet taken out, got drunk, and hooked up with 3 chicks. Like dude's a G, and so
yeah, it's definitely building up, and then like the army comes in, and like you have like the force of like the Butcher's men, the force of Amsterdam's men, and the Union troops, and like you said, the gunship starts firing. And what I really kind of got out of this is like this whole like gang warfare like mentality. As soon as those gunships start firing, like that's all over. That's in the past. Like modern warfare is officially like that's where we're at now. And like officially these guys have been kind of lost to history. And you see that after what don't they bury him like right outside of New York, and we get this really cool montage where the grave gets older and older, and we see the city come up behind them. And so this movie really captures like there's like this piece of history that's been lost, this this strange gang warfare between immigrants and very flamboyant cultures going at each other, and then and it's lost, and this lost piece of history that's Marty captured in this movie. It's pretty entertaining. Go ahead.
Another thing, now granted, even though that ending was kind of anticlimactic, like you wanted this big fight between the two, it does kind of mirror, because the beginning of the movie, because you think you're going to get this big fight between Daniel Day-Lewis and Liam Neeson, because they're the two leaders in the big beginning battle, and then Daniel Day-Lewis just stabs Liam Neeson, and you don't ever get that fight either. So it is, even though it's almost a mirror just of that scene. So it's anticlimactic and you don't necessarily get what you want, but it is a kind of a good piece of filmmaking in that sense of that, it's the mirror. And then they bury Bill the Butcher next to Priest Valiant, and then on the outside, and then you see New York through the times. They build the bridge. They eventually showed the shot of the towers, and then that's actually why this movie got released even later than it was going to originally. Was when it was set. It was going to set to release, and then 9/11 happened.
Right.
So they released it like months later after it was supposed to. I ended up reading that. I read it somewhere. Maybe it was in this Wikipedia.
Nice.
That I have pulled up.
Yeah, speaking of that opening scene again, the blood against the snow and stuff, man, that looked really great. Yeah, I think it's so weird whenever I watch a movie like this, and I'm like kind of underwhelmed by the middle of the movie, and like there's these moments of like greatness, and then I flip back through it and I appreciate a lot more of like the production design, how the movie actually looked, and then talking about it now. So it's really neat how like watching a movie doesn't necessarily have to stop as soon as you're done watching it. You can read about it, you can talk to your friends about it, you can write about it, you can look back through it, and you gain so much more appreciation. It's not my favorite Scorsese. It's probably mid to low tier just because it kind of drags in the middle there, like I complained about earlier. But he's a master filmmaker, so phenomenal cast. I probably didn't give Leo enough credit in my review. I probably shined it all on Daniel Day-Lewis, which he deserves as well. I think I gave this one 3.5 stars as well. So is it a little higher for you?
Yeah, I gave it the full 5.
Oh wow, this is a 5er for you. Okay.
I very much enjoyed this movie. I had some things I could nitpick, but I had given it a 5 previously, I guess, when I was going through and just listing all the movies I had seen when I was starting Letterboxd, and I had a few like little nitpicky things, but I felt that it was a 5. I think it's more near the top of Marty's stuff. I haven't seen everything. You've seen more of his stuff than I have, so I really like it. I really like history. So, and I really like Leo. Like I really like Leo, but Daniel. DDL was aces in this movie, so
nice. All right, so what's our next challenge? There's been a lot of build up to this.
All right, so we're gonna come full circle here. So we had the Jurassic Park quote, and it was from
Laura Dern.
It was from Laura Dern, and then we've actually talked about this movie, and we talked about this director. So we're going to do Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi.
Ah, okay. There you go.
In preparation for Episode 9.
Oh, perfect timing. Yep.
Plus, with this being a super polarizing movie that either you love or you hate, and most people apparently seem to hate this movie. I figured it'd be a good one that we could discuss and different things of that nature. So
cool. And the movie off of your list that I'm picking for our next feature is we got 3 left, and I'm gonna go with Rumblefish. I saw this not too long ago. This is a Coppola movie. A lot of good young actors and their opening performances. yeah, so we'll revisit this. And fingers crossed, we have plans to have not one but two guest hosts next time around. So 4 of us roundtabling these movies should be interesting. So hopefully that can all come together good. All right. So thanks so much, everyone, for following the show. And if you want to join the movie club, the Average Joe's Movie Club cast, make sure to hit subscribe, leave us a comment, send us an email. How can they send us an email, Joey?
It's at the Average Joe's Movie Club cast at gmail.com.
All right. It was a great time talking movies with you as always. Happy movie watching, everybody. Skol.
Goodbye, everybody, and go Tigers.
Ooh, we'll see. LSU, right?
Well, I mean, that's Go Tigers, and I do kind of hope they beat the Bulldogs, but not Real Death Valley. 3-time national champs.
Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
You and I have unfinished business.
Oh? And what's so stinking about it?
Non mi piace il feeling. Spirito Santo.
I think this just might be my masterpiece.